It's a great afternoon. Welcome to your top station. It's Galaxy Radio and also Radio Flora. We do a simulcast, and this is the segment that we call the Vault. And in the Vault, what we do, we generally look at different topics, talk to different people from different parts of the world, and we discuss. We want to understand. And today, this afternoon, I'm privileged to talk to Professor Deepak Nathan, all the way from India. Professor, it's a good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Professor Deepak Nathan, to start off our conversation, just tell the listeners who is Professor Deepak Nathan and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm Professor Deepak Nathan, teaching medical social work in Loyola College, Chennai. And Chennai is one of the provinces headquarters located in the south side of India. And I'm a social work graduate, and I also did my master's in social psychiatry in the King's College London, and international mental health from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. I'm a person with disability from 9 months childhood. I'm afflicted with polio, and I've been an activist on the disability sector for the last 17 years, right from 2007. So it's almost 15, 16 years now. And I serve the government in the capacity of member for the welfare board of the state government. And largely, I'm a little prominent disability rights activist in this part of the country. Yes, and that's myself.
Okay, that's
and I believe in non-casteist movement. I believe in social justice and disability rights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great profile, Professor. So now let's talk about issues or regarding issues of disability, right? My first question to you would be like, the United Nations has proclaimed a day of persons with disabilities, which is always celebrated in the first week of December. My question to you first is, do you think this day is actually really recognized around the world? What's your view about it?
Now, see, I can give two types of answer to be on a very straight angle. I mean, these are the only ways where we can do a little little to the world, So I have a little critical opinion about the UN organization in first step, but you don't have any other go except to accept an international body. So in that case, when we have an International Disability Rights Day, and I think it has at least something to show to the people, show to the government, and on the eve of this, probably try to bring some kind of thoughts into the disability rights, So in that way, it really helps. Disability Rights Day. In fact, in many of our countries across the globe, they celebrate the International Disability Day, which I don't have I don't go with that. I have a different take on it. It is not a day to celebrate, rather, it is a day to try to understand, try to reflect on what we have done, try to understand where we really stand and where we have to go on different types of disabilities, a broad view, a reflection, a seminar, a conference, a state parties will have to come together. But these are the ways that we have to look at the International Disability Day. And many of the governments across the countries are looking at it as a diplomatic, I'm using the word diplomatic in the truest sense of diplomacy. The truest sense practically is like, just shrugging off their responsibility by commemorating it. That is how I see. But in original terms, International Disability Day must have its real weightage and must be commemorated in a much better fashion, is what I would say. And probably when the UN body gives you a kind of a theme, and it is not a theme that is just washed away with the sunset. No, that cannot be the way forward. It has to have a task force, a review matter, like you have an universal periodic review. So these themes, how far it has come to reality and what is the checking mechanism, these things will have to be undertaken. I mean, that is my take. Many countries, the local politics dominates over the international disability. I mean, we have to look at it in that sense also. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's look at India as a country. On the international, on that day that has been proclaimed by the United Nations, India as a country, do you think much is being done to make people aware of issues of disabilities, or what could be done better to really make sure that day is given its recognition as proclaimed by the United Nations?
See, certain things India has done much better in the front of commemorating the International Disability Days, or giving some kind of an rights perspective into legal statutes with all its plus and minus. We have had the second, now it's the second statute that we have. We originally had a Persons with Disabilities Act of 1995. Even many countries do not have a law for themselves. For instance, Mauritius doesn't have a law for disabled people at all, even after the UNCRPD. So, I mean, given that as a prism to compare, when I think India has the second statute, which was enacted in 2016. So the perspective towards disabled people's rights is much more better. The government is striving to make it little more better, but a long way to go. I mean, in terms, you cannot just take India as a country just as one, because see, India is a country of 38 states, so every state has got its own culture, own perspective, own politics, and so they have a legislature. So the province are much bigger, and it is a huge volume of population also. So the politics, definitely, I don't think that we have been much more participative. The way forward is to make the disability as a priority in the government actions. See, when it comes to a market society, I mean, look at we had this danger of liquidating or probably mellowing down certain statutes where it criminalizes anything against disabled people in terms of violence and all that. So that was supposed to have been tried to put down or liquidate or mellow down its real statute. So these kind of initiatives are to attract the business population to the country. So see, when it comes to a philosophical ground stand, whether to stand with the business community or to really stand for the disabled sector, and I think the market economy and the capitalism is actually taking a fore.
Okay. I've figured out that every time you're with a rights person, you get what I'm saying, they can really go on and on and on, But anyway, so now having your response, you have traveled to the UK, you've been in India. What's your own take on issues like how the UK has done it in terms of addressing disability vis-a-vis? Let's compare India and the UK. When you look at it, what do you think things that the UK has done correctly in terms of disability, of addressing disability? It might be accessibility, it might be the rights, it might be living, it might be access to health. Comparing to India, let's just use those two countries as a case study, since they're the two countries that you've personally gone to.
I have been to UK in 2002 to 2005, and then on I have not been there. But I don't think I'll be able to compare the present Indian country and the UK. As far as my experiences goes, probably I would say certain even stations, certain railway stations, metro stations were not accessible. I wanted to see the Trafalgar Square on December 31st of 2004, but unfortunately, or the 2005 Jan 1st, the dawn of the new year, which I could not do that because Thames station was closed and it was not accessible. So the central London, I had to go round and round and round and come back to Fitzroy Square station. So I could, because it was not accessible, I missed that event. So that is what I've seen in London. But in terms of many other things, for instance, when disabled people want to contest for office or run for office in the UK, there is some considerable amount of sustainable monetary support to run for elections. I mean, on these accounts, UK is leading. I would say the statute is a bit strong. I don't know, whether it's strong as American Disabilities Act, but pretty strong in compared to the Indian statute. But India, in its accessibility norms, I think it has to go a way forward. I mean, that is how it is. But in terms of people's heart, I would say we still are in the charity aspect. We see them as very sickening people. I mean, still they look at it, and the dogmas, the stereotypes which are in the culture is also really disabling. More than the disability, the attitudinal barriers in India is more disabling than the disabilities. It is a bitter truth that I would have to put to the international audience on various accounts. When the corporate and the private institutions are really helping us. I mean, the diversity, the notion on diversity, employment, on all that account, it is developing, but to whom it reaches, whether it really percolates to the last person in the last row of the community, it is yet to be seen. But the able to disabled people, which means the ableism into the disability department is also slowly in the disability sector is also cannot be just like that abrogated. But very encouraging at the moment nowadays. Yes.
What about in terms of access to assistive devices for persons with disabilities, in terms of walking canes, wheelchairs, crutches, and hearing aids? How do persons with disabilities have got access to those things, or is beyond their reach, or the government gives it for free?
What level of accessible devices is assisted devices is the question. To which sector of the disabled people is also something to be pondered upon. See, the very well-off disabled people will be able to get the top-notch technology, even imported. I mean, those are very, very little people, little percentile of the population. But as far as a common man, when I'm a leader of the community-based organization, when I look at from the perspective of rural India, I mean, it's still a very, very long distant dream for many to have assisted devices. I mean, that is the reality. See, India is a country where you cannot give a
Professor Deepak,
answer.
Professor Deepak, just to simplify the answer. So are you saying it's difficult for persons with disabilities in India to get assistive devices because they are expensive, or they do not get anything from the government?
That's why I asked this. I started this answer not by generalizing to which kind of assistive device. Imagine I want to have a very high level of technology.
Let's just say a simple. Let's look at the simple basics.
Assistive device is always possible.
A walking cane.
That is possible.
Okay. So when you say it's possible, is it given by government, or somebody should be able to buy it on their own?
Government gives free of cost, but the quality is always a question. But at the same time, the private NGOs, they are also playing a very big role in making that white canes, or for that matter, even JAWS software. I mean, those ones are being given by the private NGO partners also. So I mean, you cannot just say the government. The government is not able to reach to the really closed community, disability community, but the NGOs are able to reach it. I mean, that is the reality in India.
Okay. But then when you look at issues like, let's just take, for example, you look at JAWS, there's always NVIDIA, which is a free open source software, which is for free. So I think there's always an alternative. Other using JAWS, you can use NVIDIA, which is an open source software. But it always goes back to what one feels comfortable to. Let's look at the issues of the rights of the person with disabilities. Do you think the rights of persons with disabilities are actually respected, actually really considered, or they are just rights on paper, but really never implemented?
It is rights in the paper, my dear friend. Just because to me, I cannot. The listeners, at least, are in the global forum. So just for the new nationalistic idea, I cannot just give or paint a lie. I just want to be very blunt and straightforward. It is just a right in the paper. The right for the disabled people to the last person in the last row of the community is still evading, elusive. And really, sometimes it is an illusion. To me, disability rights in India seems to be a lot of illusion, not even the delusion. It is an illusion. It looks like, but when you go near, you find it difficult. Because I'm not just saying, just because I'm a prof, I'm a person with disability, and I know how it is. Even I could become, before could become a professor, I've had enough in the hands of the government. So, I mean, it is very elusive, sir. It's elusive and elusive, yes.
Okay.
I don't want to go more about it.
Yes. Okay. So in order for some of these issues of the rights of the disabled, what do you think has to be done? What steps do you think governments need to do in order to address the issues of the rights of persons with disabilities?
I know. Thank you very much for this wonderful question. I mean, this is what I initially wanted it. See, unless and until we understand the disabled people and make them really part of these initiatives, I don't think we will have sustainable development. Making disabled people part of politics, part of public policy, right from the planning, not as a tokenistic participation, but from effective participation approach. I mean, I think then it will have a huge change, huge change. Second, the market economy must not dominate. Market capitalism should not dominate. Rather, at least when it comes to disability rights, or for that matter, any vulnerable sector, well, we think we need to think on the social model. Look at the Germany. In fact, we have been hearing so much about Germany, that saying that they have done some truly good work in terms of employment, and you cannot chuck any disabled person right from employment. So these kind of approach, even in a capitalistic country, when you have a socialistic model, why not from a country which talks about welfare model? Indian Constitution talks about welfare model. So I think participation is key. Not allowing the market economy to dominate disability rights is the key. These two things have to be very, very clear. We are not part of the Indian Parliament. We are not part of state legislatures. We are not part of government. We are not part of public. So, I mean, we are still out of it. Being near to the power and being out of the power is not one and the same. Being part of the power and being central to the power is not one and the same. Being central to the power and being the power is not the one and the same. So that is how the Indian politics is all about. So I think politics must also be inclusive. Yes, that is the only really way forward. We cannot be just receivers. We need to be contributors and participatory people. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're listening to Galaxy Radio, Radio Flow, right here on the Vault on a beautiful Sunday with DJ Nyamz, and I'm talking to Professor Deepak Nathan from, he's based in India. He's a disability rights activist. And we're looking at the issue of disabilities and his own understanding and his appreciation, right? When you look at the issues of persons with disabilities, access to health, to shelter, to education, what's your take about it? How do you think that issue has been addressed to give persons with disabilities access to health, to shelter, to education, even to security?
Shelter, it is picking up, and certain schemes have been initiated both by the central government and the union government and the federal governments. I mean, it is now picking up, and we're all working on it, and fine. I mean, those in the shelters, there are specific help which is coming in forms of subsidies, both at the central government and at the federal level. Local governments are yet to gear up to that. I mean, they are a little elusive on this, but as in front of health, we have not considerably gone a little forward. We are still lagging in a lot of, even the equipments are not disabled friendly, right from the blood pressure equipment to even a couch. You don't find anything on disability front. But the healthcare industry, it's still a little, it is okay, but I don't think we have enough. Your early intervention centers are there. It is largely on preventive mode, not in a promotive mode for persons with disability. When you talk about health, preventive, promotive, and curative. It is not just curative. That is not accessible, but also promotive health, it is yet to come to disabled people. As far as education is concerned, the gross enrollment ratio at the school level is okay. But I would say out of 100 people, 1 or 2 only go to the university. So it is still a long way to go in terms of higher education. We do have some kind of positive discrimination called reservation for persons with disabilities. It is 4% reservation, 5% reservation in higher education. But it is not very clear this 5% reservation is whether for the university at whole or a department or a course, or a program. So those kind of confusions are still there because, that is why I said from the experiential understanding in India, it is there. But it is not there. So that is the kind of, when you go to actually realize it, it finds difficult. So diplomacy takes an upper hand here. So yeah, that's it.
All right, great. It's been really great having a conversation with you, Professor Deepak. But also just to end off this interview, we've seen that there's wars that are happening in the world. There's a war in Ukraine. There's a war in Sudan. There's a war in Israel. And the question is always about the person with disabilities are always left to die in these wars and they never evacuated. If you had a message to the United Nations or to other NGOs, what would be their message in terms of evacuating persons with disabilities when wars break up in different countries?
I would straight away in one single line: war is ugly. War is too ugly. And we don't want to see more people with disabilities to come to the fore because of wars. And my strongest message is to the governments which want to be very selfish in terms of their actions, creating these kinds of wars, and people who aid these wars. I mean, that is also a very important thing that we have to look at. The global security is on question. And United Nations cannot be just working on social and economical model, but to be little strong on the political model also. Genocides and tortures and war torture and all their actions. I think they have to be little strong. They cannot be just be puppets of capitalistic countries. It's not that I'm talking as a communist. No, it's not, certainly not that way, because I use these words. But I think they have to be little more aggressive in terms of stopping these wars to come to reality. I mean, it creates a lot of disabled people. Yeah.
No, but the problem is when they happen, everybody else can be evacuated easily. But persons with disabilities normally are left, and they're caught up in these wars and they become the victims of these wars. So the question is, what would you encourage governments, NGOs, the international community to do when they break out in terms of also evacuating persons with disabilities from these wars?
Evacuate disabled people with dignity is what I would say. I mean, even just because you are evacuating, you cannot treat disabled people in an undignified manner. I think we as humans, we have the inalienable, indivisible human dignity with us. And I think with proper due regard to the wants and needs of the disabled people, these governments must evacuate them, bring them back better. I mean, I would say bring their life back better. Unless if you cannot bring their life back better, don't go to war. I mean, that is what is my statement. I mean, the global community must start working with disabled people in most vulnerable areas also. We had something in Sri Lanka. Many have become disabled for the life. I think this is inhuman, and it is not civilized. See, war is a very uncivilized way forward for the human community. So that is why I said war is ugly. War is too ugly even now.
Okay, Professor Deepak Nathan, just to end off, what would be your parting shots? What is the message that you'd want to give out there to everybody who's listening to you this afternoon?
Make disabled people part of politics, and politics is something without disabled people, it is social injustice. Only inclusive politics can be way forward. We cannot just keep talking in the boardrooms. We have to have implementers with powers. I think politics, disability rights cannot stop it with disability rights. Disability rights has to graduate itself into disability politics also. That's my message.
Okay. No, Professor Deepak Nathan, thank you so much for coming through, and we'll connect with you on other discussions and topics, and we'll be hearing more from you. Others, have yourself a lovely day.
Thank you very much. Lovely day to you too.